brothers Bob and Dick, in the beginning and at the end. Introduction. This is about our early life, my relationship with Bob and how he influenced my life. We grew up together until he ran away from home in 1958 and then only sporadically until 2002 when he moved to Pasco Hall, Dade City, Florida, in retirement. Bob was born January 14, 1942, at the start of World War II. I was born March 19, 1946, just after the war, a mere 4 years of separation. In 1941, Mom and Dad built a new home at 2300 Cheverly Avenue, Cheverly, MD, a few miles from the Library of Congress, where Dad worked. During the first part of World War II, Dad was assigned to the Atlantic Fleet flagship, the USS Vixen, which frequently docked at the Philadelphia Navy, and Vida, who lived with them, rented a row house in Upper Darby, a neighborhood about 2.5 miles from the dock. After World War II, 1948, the family moved to Sandcroft Farm, Clinton, Maryland, a 10-acre plot of old tobacco farm. Bob was 6 and I was 2. Mom and Dad grew up in agricultural environments, but also earned college degrees, which was unique for the 1930s. Sandcroft, a 10-acre farmette, as Dad called it, consisted of 3.5 acres of woods, 3.5 acres of pasture, an acre and a half of garden. The remainder was orchard, farm buildings and open fields. Dad needed help operating a 10-acre farm and holding down a demanding job at the Library of Congress. As was the custom in those days, we boys were put to work doing chores. When Bob became old enough to move on from basic chores to advanced chores, the basic chores fell to me. The basic chores included gathering the eggs from the hen house, hooing weeds in the garden, shoveling out chicken manure from the hen house, and mowing lawn. The advanced chores included milking Hannah, the golden Guernsey cow, once a day, mucking out stalls, turning of the composting, spreading it in the garden, plowing, disking, harrowing, as required, and cutting hay, and gathering hay. Oh, and painting the chicken house and barn with silver, aluminum paint. We worked after school and on Saturdays. We had large tasks such as building a fence around the 3.5 acre pasture, and then dividing it into 2 paddocks. We dug post holes 3 feet deep for railroad cross-tie posts, stretched hog wire and 3 strands of barbed wire. Other one-of-a-kind tasks included digging a trench from the house to the barn, over 18 inches deep, to run water lines to the animals. Prior to that, we were running water to the animals in a hose. But in the wintertime, we would have to carry hot water to melt the ice in the animals' water barrels. Bob and the silver paint. Once, Pop gave Bob the job of painting the chicken coop, which was made out of telephone poles and corrugated tin sheets. Not able to negotiate a stepladder carrying a gallon bucket of aluminum paint to reach high places, he slipped and fell, dumping the gallon of silver paint on his blonde head. I think Dad is still chuckling over that. Bob and the garden. As brothers often do, Bob and I bickered about the division of labor when given joint tasks. After church one Sunday, we were to hoe weeds in the garden. I changed clothes and went to the garden to work. Bob failed to show up. Not wanting to be unfairly burdened with Bob's share of work, I marched into the bedroom to find Bob just beginning to undress. I complained, but all I got for my troubles was a smirk. Now clad only in his skivvies, I grabbed a hoe and chased him out into the garden and demanded that he'd start working. He never forgot that incident. Bob's outside jobs. About the age of 10 or 11, Bob was allowed to have a paper route. He delivered the Washington Star on his bicycle to most of the little town of Clinton. When Bob gave up his paper route, I took on a portion of it. When Bob was about 13, Dad set up Bob as the concessionaire of the Saturday night teen club, selling cokes, gum, and candy to the kids. He didn't care for that either, so I inherited that job as well. Bob as an early example. Bob's natural talent as an artist influenced my life more than I can say. He was very self-confident, somewhat authoritative, but a true artist in the making at an early age. I can still see in my mind's eye a portion of one of his high school paintings. I always admired that about my older brother. His ability to learn and create sparked my interest in visual arts and motivated me to create, which has taken me into cartography, typography, photography, and videography, as well as computer graphics. Bob's continued growth. In California, Bob is in the world of advertising. He learned graphics, typography, photography, and videography, and then computer graphics and some web design. He traveled to much of Europe where he was exposed to Art Nouveau and North Africa, learned to cook, and scuba dive. He refurbished cars, collected weapons, and paintings, and statues. He was particular in love with Art Nouveau. Using his wife Jean as a model, he developed his skill as a sculptor. Later influences. In 2002, Bob retired to Florida. We got to see a lot more of each other. We shared our common interests and expertise with each other. He was free with his compliments, which made me feel very good. Bob shared his love of cooking. He'd used French cooking jargon, such as roux, Holy Trinity, and mirepoix. This sparked my creativity in food preparation and presentation. Bob as a chef. On more than one occasion, my friends and I were invited to Pasco Hall, named for Bob's love of Toad Hall, for a 4 or 5 course meal, with more than one types of wine. I am still impressed with his culinary skill and his generosity. Bob as an autodidact. Another aspect of Bob that I didn't know until his last year was that he hated to read. We both collected books, but learned by doing and watching educational videos. His DVR was full of cooking shows. He also watched the History, Science, and Discovery channels, plus How It Works. From time to time we would fall into a discussion on a topic of mutual interest. Bob would make a statement of fact, which I felt necessary to challenge. I'd ask, "Where did you learn that?" He would cite the TV show as his source. This was very astute for a man with an 11th grade education. Richard Walker. November 28, 2015.